Hello and welcome to Yoga with Laura Ashland. I appreciate you visiting my channel. Please hit the subscribe button down below and let's practice yoga together. We are working on these very small, 10 minutes or so, clips of just a little movement, maybe connecting 2 or 3 movements together and kind of breaking down that particular movement into a modified version or a little bit more challenging version. So instead of full flows, we're going to start working in smaller chunks of video for you. So today we're going to work on child's pose and coming up into either a half cobra or full cobra. Now that would be child's pose, which is balasana, and the Cobra bhujangasana. Very nice. It prepares us for up dog, which swings us back into the down dog, etc. But these are just going to be a very simple 2-part flow today. So you can always have your cushion with you if you need it. I might even place it at my chest to show you a very nice way of doing these pieces. I always have props with me to modify. I've got the mat at an angle so that you can not always see everything perpendicular from your gaze at your TV or your iPad. I would like you to also be able to see it from a little bit different angle, maybe get a little bit more. So in child's pose, there are 2 processes here. One is to have the knees right underneath the lungs, and then lengthening through the shoulder head, lengthening through the forearm, bringing down the forehead, or having your block and keeping the forehead high, which keeps the neck more supported, maybe a little raising up of the floor. So here's one child's pose. Fingertips can be tented, or they can be flat. When you give that flatter hand, you're sinking the shoulder head a little bit. Maybe that's too pinchy for a lot of people. They would rather be up and lifted a little bit. More even support versus collapsing. So here are lots of different ways for child's posture. Now, one thing about child's posture is that I've got my thighs resting on my lung lobes, and it's kind of encumbering for me to breathe. So if I feel I'm going to be here for a while, you want to go ahead and bring those knees out to the long line of the mat, have more of a V in space, and then setting the hips down, forehead down. Remember not to bring the chin down because you don't want this pinch of the neck here. So bringing the neck down, again tenting, flat palms, which gives me a little more extension in the arms and shoulders. This gives me a little more lift. It brings my wrist in line with elbow, in line with shoulder. One of the great benefits of child's pose is that it will elongate your spine and the muscles of the back. It will help to open up the hips. It's not super important that the hips get down to the heels. Here's another way for child's posture. Possibly here, or bringing the hips up a little bit. So maybe you have the forehead down, fingers are reaching, and the hips are a little bit higher, versus lengthening the hips and loosening up here. This is a process. This is a wonderful piece to achieve, to get low into the heel here, but it is not always available to everybody. So you want to know that you can always come up any amount here. This becomes puppy with this little more stretched out heart here rather than having it to the floor. So child's pose, balasana, has a lot of different ways. Knees out, knees straight in. Usually when you're flowing and you're moving forward, you do want those knees a little bit more parallel underneath your torso. But if we're hanging around for a while and trying to stretch out, having the knees open is great. Also, another thing that you can do is to bring the blocks for the hands. You can even have a third block here. And all that's really doing is it's bringing the floor up to you. So that if making it down to the floor stresses the body in any way, or puts you in a posture that you're not comfortable being in, then having the blocks come up to you, or a high bolster, and maybe resting the arms here. Lots of different varieties for the blocks. That just brought everything up a little bit higher, because as I was lowering to the mat, those 4 or 5 inches, this becomes a little bit too much for some folks' shoulders, maybe even the traps, maybe even the tightness back here in the back. So lots of different options here for the child's pose. Now we're going to connect child's pose into that half cobra or full cobra. Since we are going to be on the move and go through, we will start with a nice outstretched hand. The farther out I can reach, even if I pick up my hip a little bit, the farther out I can reach, the more space I will have in this arc from hand to knee to lay down the hips. If I'm close and I go over, I have nowhere to put my hips down. So the more reach, the more extension you can do with these hands. Even if the body lifts a little bit, you can walk out a few inches with your fingertips, is really excellent for space for the hip to land. So inhale from child's pose. We pick up the hip in line with knee. I am not in line wrist and shoulder. Notice that slope there, but that's because I was really reaching out for space. Once we're here, I'm going to tuck the cat-like. So I went from neutral pelvic bowl to cat-like pelvic bowl. Let the thighs come down, then the hips, then pubic bone. Now right here could be your full cobra, and you're happy to stay right here. If you want to go all the way down, you're going to go ahead and press the seams of the elbows. You're going to collapse the seam of the inside of the arm. Press the elbow points towards your hips. Lay down your belly, your heart, the throat, and the head. Now to come back up, I may want to slide my hands down just a little bit. They were in that extension of the child's pose. So I would slip back just a little bit. Maybe my thumbs are right at the sides of the pecs. Squeeze the elbows together. Lengthen the neck. Lift the feet a little bit. Prepare inhale. And as I exhale, I squeeze the pubic bone, hips, and gluteals into the center. Inhale here about halfway. Exhale, press back to the child's pose. Now I'm going to do that one more time in a nice cycle. Inhale, hips come up about at the knees. I've got a lot of space now between my knee and my palm to cat the hip. Place the pubic bone and hip down, thighs come down. Relax your shoulders here. Don't let them crowd up to the ears. Press away with the shoulders. Nice long neck, almost like a turtleneck. Coming out of the collar. Exhale, I press the elbows towards my hips. I press with my heel and palm of the hand. Here, the heel and the ball of the hand. Inhale, prepare as I'm sliding my fingertips a little closer to the pecs. Exhale, press the pubic bone in, squeeze the glutes together, close the seam here in the gluteal area, lift the legs. Already, I have a floating of the upper, more finer parts of the bones, shoulder and arms. Inhale, neutral. Enjoy this neutral spine for just a second or two, but always pay attention to that wonderful neutral spine, and then exhale to the child's pose. Now, one of the issues that we have with coming up in either your little half cobra or full cobra, okay, getting that nice length in the upper spine, length in the neck, looking up if you have it to look up, don't look up if you don't have it. just this beautiful flow. There are two schools of thought, and I want to put this out there because I want people to experiment a little bit, what works for your body. In the anatomy, Hatha anatomy, yoga, it talks about the diaphragm. When you inhale the diaphragm, you create a big balloon. So already that balloon, kind of like the hovercraft ballast that hold up the floating of a hovercraft or a pontoon, right? So here we have this big balloon. We've inhaled and lifted a little bit, which brings low spine and hips up. And that continued inhale takes you to the full Cobra or back and get ready to go back into the child's pose. However, there's a second part to this that you just want to experiment with. It could be, what about an exhale to lift? As I'm flat on the ground and I want to exhale out all the air, what that does is it brings my muscles closer to the bones. It brings the heaviest part of my body, my glutes, the abdominal, the thigh. It grounds everything very tightly so that when that is pressing down into the mat, I have that automatic opposite force, right, of physics, where the upper body will lift. If the center of the body is going down, kind of like a rocket ship, if the booster energy is going down into the earth, then that rocket is going to go up. So if the center of your body energy is going down into the earth, possibly you could be lifting the finer parts of the upper body up. Again, the shoulders, the arms, the wrists, the hands pressing up, collarbone, this whole area. Often I see when people get down to their full Cobra, whatever it is, well, let's actually take it all the way down. They plant the hands, they get ready for an inhale, and it becomes we tend to have this kind of grunting, moaning sound, and we're lifting, and it's all coming from this area of the body. At least while we're training, we want that area to get a little stronger. We don't want to tax it while we're trying to increase the strength of a fine part of the body. So here is inhale. It did help bring my hips up a little bit, and this is a choice. You can certainly do it this way, and then exhale as you're coming back to the child's posture. But until and while we are conditioning, I like to see, and this again, I'm throwing out both ways for you to choose. Inhale, prepare. Exhale, there goes the shoulder heads. There goes the point of the elbow together and down, right? So I'm getting my shoulders off the neck. I'm squeezing the pubic bone in. My legs have floated up. I've got the lift coming from the gluteals and the thighs and the abdominal. Then inhale midway, then exhale, child's pose. So here we go. Opening the knees. Let's do a couple rounds together. Oh, excuse me. Closing the knees. Inhale, come up. Exhale, cat the hip. Lay the middle of the body down. Relax your shoulders. Smile the collarbone. You can choose to continue to look up if you have that available. If not, look straight ahead. Maybe even a little down. Press the elbows into a fold. Control the descent of the upper body. Inhale, prepare. Exhale, all the upper body shifts down toward the hips. My glute and my abdominals and my thigh brought me up. Neutral, enjoy that beautiful neutral spine. And the opposite action for the spine is a nice elongation in child's pose. Inhale, come up. Exhale, cat. Drop the tailbone in. Let the pubic bone and hip come first. Press through. It's kind of connect the dots as you move. Way to lower the forehead. Press the third eye into the mat. Feels really good. Inhale, prepare. Exhale, all of my upper body shifts toward the hips. My glutes squeeze in, and the strongest part of the body lifts me up, shifting a little inhale and then to the exhale. So that is our little bit of movement today. Child's pose, balasana, into full cobra, or halfway, half cobra, bhujangasana. Bhujanga is a limb or an arm, very snake-like. So we are moving a little bit like a cobra. If you've seen the snake, they come straight from the hip, straight up out of the ground. Obviously, we're not all going to move like a cobra, but it's kind of the image helps you to connect the segments, which really is connecting the segments of spine. So thank you for our little bit of yoga clip today on movement and motion. We're just putting a few pieces together. Namaste.